Well, welcome everyone to the Cost of Courage podcast. We are so honored today to have Congressman Jimmy Panetta with us. Thank you so much for being here. We usually start with a little bio, so if you wanted to tell everyone about yourself if they don't already know.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there's a lot of people who watch will not know. But thanks first and foremost, Kelly, for having us and everything that the Cost of Courage Foundation does when it comes to those who served. I really feel there is an obligation upon all of us to serve those who served us. And obviously having organizations like Cost of Courage really kind of fulfills that responsibility that I think we have to our veterans, and therefore you're fulfilling your responsibility to our community, but more importantly, our democracy. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I'm the 19th Congressional District in California representative, the United States representative, otherwise known as a U.S. Congress member. Yes. I've been in this position since 2017 when I took the oath to the Constitution to fulfill my duties as a U.S. Congress member. And prior to being a U.S. Congress member in the 19th Congressional District, I was a prosecutor in Monterey County. I'll just kind of work backwards. Prosecutor in Monterey County from 2016 to about 2010, in which I worked on the gang team. And then before that, I was a prosecutor up in Alameda County, Oakland, and so forth in that area on the East Bay from about 2010 to about 1996 when I started right out of Santa Clara Law School. Go Broncos.
Go Broncos, everyone.
UC Davis graduate, MPC Lobo graduate at a community college, and then grew up down in Carmel Valley, the place where I was fortunate enough that my grandfather, an Italian immigrant, chose to settle, thank goodness, and raise his family there. And I was able to raise, my wife and I were able to raise our two daughters there, went to the same public high schools that I went to. So during that time, obviously, I am a veteran. I served in Afghanistan from 07 to 08, joined the Naval Reserve in 03, and fulfilled my obligation up to 2011.
That's incredible. I mean, just thank you for all you've done. And I mean, just such an incredible bio. And then you continue to serve. So that's what I find even more amazing. I think something is just in you that, you know, that's just in your blood to serve.
Yeah, I mean, there's a through line, and you see that especially in the United States Congress for the most part. I can't say that about some of my colleagues on the left and on the right. There's a mix of them that are there for themselves, but for the most part, there's a lot of members there. That really is the second best part of the job. First part of the best part about the job as a U.S. Congress member is I get to serve, make the federal government work for the people and the place and the values of my home. Absolutely. There in the 19th Congressional District. The second best part of the job really is the people are the people I work with. Men and women who are there for the right reasons, to serve their constituency, to get stuff done, and not really to be in the entertainment industry, but to be in the legislation industry. And I can tell you, most of the people that fall into that category are those who served in government before, and most of the time are veterans and served in the military before.
That's interesting.
It's really, I've definitely kind of gravitate towards each other because we're there for the right reasons. So, like I said, being having served in the military for a mission that is much bigger than ourselves, it kind of gives us the foundation, not only to fill what all of us are there for, like you said, that through line of service to our country, but it allows us to fulfill our job, the mission of getting stuff done in the United States Congress. Don't get me wrong. We're going to have our politics. We're going to have our differences. Absolutely. Now, I'm a Democrat. There are people who are Republicans. We're not going to agree on everything. But we're not there just to point out our differences. We actually work together to find our similarities and work on bills together.
Absolutely. I think that's a wonderful philosophy and a wonderful attitude that you bring to your role. And I think that really helps you represent your district, which your district is really interesting because it has a base, it has an active base where we have a pantry. It's got a few of them, but in particular, there's Presidio of Monterey where we have a pantry for their base population. We provide no-cost grocery personal care items, frozen meals. And that's been really rewarding. And I think you have this unique vantage point of the needs of that population because you represent them. So again, I think putting that together with what you know of your own district and then your philosophy on service, it's such a great melding of exactly what I think is needed in that area right now.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I sigh for a couple of reasons.
Okay.
I sigh because the 19th Congressional District is the best congressional district in the nation. I get it. Place where I grew up. It's my home. But you have a number of like you said, a number of military installations, but we also have a rich military history.
Definitely.
I mean, starting where Commodore Sloat planted the flag for the United States, basically ensuring California was a part of the Union. But at the same time, basically, we've had a number of military installations. We had the former Fort Ord,
right,
which was extremely large, and then we have over 10 military installations right now in the district, most of them in Monterey County. So you have everything from DLI, the Defense Language Institute, to the Presidio that you talked about, the Navy Postgraduate School, Fort Hunter Liggett, Camp Roberts, Naval Research Lab. You have the Naval Weather Lab there. You have PERSEREC DMDC that deals with all the backgrounds and security checks. And so a number of installations where not only do we have active duty, but you have a number of members who served there in Monterey, and they have left, but they've come back to Monterey because they know it's a great place to live.
Yeah.
But my second part of my sigh is because it's such a great place to live, it makes it very, very expensive to live.
Oh, definitely.
And so that's why I sigh out of relief as well, knowing that you and the Cost of Courage Foundation is there to help people who are there and may have a tough time affording that place to live there. And so what you do for them, the pantry that you provide, shouldn't have to happen.
Oh, yeah.
But the reality is it does. And that's why it's so important to have you, to have your organization there, because we want that type of veteran. We want the people who are serving our country there to continue to exist there and really be a part of our community. That's what I found out is that, the 19th Congressional District stretches from South San Jose, Santa Cruz, down the Monterey County coastline, all the way to Cambria, and then inland, the northern swath of San Luis Obispo County kind of looks like a big kind of a moon or an L or a banana going from San Jose, Santa Cruz, Monterey, northern San Luis Obispo County. It's pretty diverse, but I can tell you the men and women that have served in the military really add to our community and add to our diversity and add to the uniqueness of the 19th Congressional District. So we want them there. We want them to stay there. We want them to retire there.
We do.
We want
and
them to look
at
it exactly. And we want them to look at it like not just a place in which they can serve their country. We want them to be a place that they can call home.
I love that. And you feel like it's home there. I mean, going there several times a month as we do, I love it. I can't. It never gets old. It's so beautiful, and just the people are wonderful, and it really is a great place to be. But to your point, it's can be a bit unaffordable, if that's the way to put it.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, I am very honored to be able to do what we do, and I thank you for the support of because it really does make a difference in someone like you understanding that this is an issue, and what can we do about it, and we're obviously doing something about it, directly, but legislatively, I know that that's been the food insecurity, veterans issues in general has been something that you've really advocated for. And I wanted to give you some time on our program here to talk about, legislation you've sponsored, anything that may still be in the pipeline.
Absolutely. And
where that came, the motivation for that came from, and probably a little bit from your own service, but is it things that you've been seeing in your district that might have inspired you to try to put forth legislation to handle it in that way?
Like you said, and like we talked about, obviously making sure that there are laws and so forth that can actually affect the people of the 19th Congressional District. And that's serving, basically putting bills forward that actually, help people going forward. And I can tell you in Congress, the one of the most bipartisan areas, Democrats and Republicans coming together, is that work for veterans and on our military. You see that in the Veterans Committee, which unfortunately I'm not a part of, but I do work well with many Democrats and Republicans on that committee. You see that amongst members in the caucuses. I'm a part of the Four Country Caucus, which is a group of about 25 Democrats, 25 Republicans, all who have served in the military, who have come together to talk about how we can work together on issues for veterans or our military. You see it in the Armed Services Committee and on the NDA, the National Defense Authorization Act, that is most of the time, at least out of committee, overwhelmingly bipartisan. Democrats and Republicans coming together to ensure that our military is supported. I mean, and so unfortunately this term, because of the numbers, there weren't any waivers, so I wasn't able to get on Armed Services. I'm on the Ways and Means Committee and the Budget Committee, but I work well with the many people on that. But I think you have to look at what we're doing foundationally for our military men and women. And what I mean by that is, it was kind of interesting in 2020, actually coming out of COVID, you really saw a dip in the recruiting. And you might have heard about this, that they just weren't meeting their numbers. I think the Marines were the only ones that met their numbers. As I had a discussion with the Commandant this weekend, we don't join anybody, they join us. And so that's kind of the attitude, in which that's why they meet their numbers. But there were Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard were just not meeting their numbers. And there's a number of reasons for that. There's not just one. There's a number of reasons that, mainly coming out of COVID and the effects that it had on young men and women.
Threw everything off.
That made it really difficult. And the accessibility of recruiters to get into schools, to get into communities, to get into stores. They just couldn't
no one
be
was
out
there.
Exactly. But what you saw is Congress taking note of that. And Congress actually responding. One of the best way you can do that is through incentives. And look, we all get the through line, as we talked about, of patriotism, of why we all serve, but there's also a pragmatism as well. And part of that is the other P word, pay. And so what you've seen since 2023 is a consistent increase in pay that we have provided in the United States Congress through the NDAA. 2023, it was 4.6% pay raise. 2024, it was 5.4% pay raise. 2026 fiscal year, this year, 14.5% for junior enlisted, one of the largest increases ever. And that was 4.5%, and then if you're a junior enlisted, you got that extra 10%. And then going into this year's NDA 2026, it's going to be 3.8%.
Wow.
So that's just foundationally. And then there's obviously personal bills that I have. One of the bills that I'm most proud of is called the DLI Act, for the Defense Language Institute Act. And what I realized is, as you know, the DLI trains the brightest recruits who have just come out of basics and they've scored very high on MASFAB, done very well in basic. They're the ones that are our interpreters. They're the ones that are our listeners. They're the ones who can learn languages. So we send them to DLI. What I realized is that you had these kids who didn't have a college degree, the high school graduates. They get to DLI and they're doing a lot of work.
Oh my goodness,
And for our national security, but not necessarily for the personal security. So I passed a bill that said that DLI can confer a Bachelor of Arts on those young men and women.
That's amazing.
So not only are they, like I said, working for their national security, they're working for their personal security, their future security by getting a BA. Then, of course, you have issues with food insecurity that we're seeing sometimes, as you know well, some of our ranks. And one of our bills that we're continuing to push forward in DAA is basically making sure that the federal government doesn't take into account the basic allowance for housing, the BAH, when it comes to receiving supplemental nutrition assistance program benefits, SNAP, food stamps. I hate to even be talking about this in this setting about this topic, but what we have to realize is that in places that are very expensive to live, our young men and women, our young junior enlisted, have to rely on SNAP.
It's true.
Which is horrible, but sometimes they're prevented from getting that SNAP because the SNAP takes into account their BAH, their
Yes,
housing
their
allowance. Therefore, that ups their income.
Yep.
Doesn't make them qualify for SNAP because they make this much when they take into account BAH. I want to get rid of that BAH factor and basically make sure it's, it falls into what they're actually making. And so that's a bill we've been working on very, very hard, and we'll continue to do it. And look, those are just a couple of bills that, like I said, go to our military personnel, but also go to our veterans as well. And what we're seeing when it comes to our veterans, obviously, a bill I sponsored basically made it easier for them to get legal services.
That's great.
Which is something that they can need, especially when they're on the verge of homelessness, which we see quite often with our veteran community, especially in Monterey. Prior to coming into Congress, I was a part of the Veterans Transition Center there in the Marina, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And things of that nature. Look, just quickly, another bill that just got passed this year. I'm very proud.
You're doing a lot of stuff.
One of the bills that I actually got signed into law this year was for qualified hazardous duty in African countries. So that was based on my travels to areas in which we have military members. Back when it was Niger, in the Sahel area, when we had members, men and women who were serving there, we still do, just not as many. And then over in Somalia and other areas, they basically approached me in my travels and said, hey, we're not getting qualified hazardous duty for our time here in Africa. And let me tell you, it can be pretty dangerous there in Africa.
Oh my goodness, yes.
So I wrote a bill, bipartisan bill, based on my travel buddy who I go there with, Austin Scott from Georgia. And it basically says that men and women who serve in the Sahel and certain countries in the west part of Africa and continent actually get qualified hazardous duty pay. And so now they do after the signing of the HR 1 that got put into law this year. So there's a number of areas.
This is
that
great.
We're working on. All of the bills I talked about were bipartisan from the DLI bill. The BAH right now is Democrats because we feel that's important. But then we're also and then another bill that I'm working on with Jen Kiggins from Virginia talks about getting recruiters, getting them access to high schools. I think that's important. I think that's there has to be that type of exposure. And so it basically mandates that high schools allow recruiters in, not all the time, not every day, but at certain times of the year in high traffic, high volume areas, so that the recruiters can be seen and just have that opportunity to talk with students and tell them about the opportunities that are there when they join the military.
We just had a colonel on last month, actually, and we were just talking about that. Exactly that. There's whatever you want to do, there's probably an opportunity for you in the military, but it's messaging that and making sure people are aware that maybe this is a path that you should think about. That's what I think is really good, that the messaging is getting out there and you putting them literally where they need to be to send that message to our younger generation. That's fantastic. And everything that I've heard is so relevant, and it's going to help not only here at home, but people who are deployed in other parts of the world. They'll feel the impacts and their families will feel the impact. So I am so thrilled that, you're thinking of all these things. And I don't know when you sleep, but it's really amazing.
It just kind of tells you the reach and the need of making sure that there's proper legislation for our military members, for our veterans.
Right.
And people have to understand that. And look, I can just tell you the impact. Since we passed these pay raises for our military men and women, you've seen it, the recruiting shoot up. So like I said, it came down after COVID, really hit all-time lows since 1973. The all-volunteer force came into effect. But once we started passing the pay raises, and like I said, the incentives and investment in recruiting, you're starting to see that go up. And I can say that this year we're actually getting to a point where the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, of course, the Marines, the Coast Guard are all meeting their numbers well before the date of their goals.
That's incredible.
So it just kind of tells you, and look, that kind of goes, it ebbs and flows with the economy. Obviously, there's other issues with patriotism. That's the through line. But like I said, it really is a pragmatism and making sure that we do our job in Congress to realize that there are those who are willing to serve. Let's at least give them the support necessary.
Yeah.
Be it them, be it their families. Another bill we're working on is providing support systems for spouses so that it makes it easier for them to get jobs. I mean, you have these military spouses, men and women, who get, move around with their spouse to different bases.
And they can't establish.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we give them a little more training, advice, and incentives, and make it easier to get hired at certain places, especially on base, so that they can have a job and contribute to,
Yeah. And mentally, that's always a good thing, too, to feel like, I'm doing something and I'm contributing to the family. And then financially, well, that's obvious that that's a good thing. So,
and let me tell you, that helps because, look, I talk about recruiting a lot.
Yeah.
That's just one part of it. It's about retention as well.
For sure.
And that's what you want. And the Commandant of the Marine Corps just, he really kind of set it up. He's like, look, we may recruit the Marine, but we need to retain the family, because a lot of times you recruit the individual during the time where they're in the military. They end up, getting married, having a family.
Right.
And it's like, then how can you then make the incentives there, not just for the military member, but for the member's family?
Yeah, because they're going to want to stay at that base. Because we've heard it a lot where it just wasn't a base that was family friendly enough, and that's sometimes part of the decision to if it's their decision to transfer and or even just re-enlist. So
and that's also benefits of making sure that there's education benefits, not just for the military member, but for their family members, for their children. Medical benefits, huge. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
And it's funny because there's artificial insemination. So can be, it's like, wait a second, are you helping with, reproduction, and you're getting into birth control and things of that nature? And it's like, no, that's actually a bipartisan issue. That's actually an incentive that we need to provide to our military members to make sure that they can have families, and that helps them stay into it. That's just part of it. So, education, medical, housing. When I first came into office, the housing that I heard of there's a lot of mold issues.
Oh my goodness.
Monterey.
Yeah, and it's old Fort Ord, a lot of it.
Absolutely. But even in the newer housing up above the courthouse there, in the area right above the Naval Postgraduate School, a lot of those new construction were done a little shoddy, therefore easily to get black mold in there. We had a number of issues.
Like a Camp Lejeune kind of situation.
Exactly, it was pretty bad.
Shoot.
But we were able to get in there, make sure the private contractor actually did its job, and we really haven't had any of those issues as of late.
So you got ahead of it, it sounds like.
Yeah,
kind of.
It happened, and then we wanted to prevent
wait decades.
it. Exactly.
Let's put it that way. Yeah, so that's a good thing.
So like I said, housing, medical, education, these are the incentives that we're doing in Washington, D.C.
That's amazing.
In addition to pay, to make sure that we recruit the right people, retain the family. And that's how we have a stronger military, especially when it's an all-volunteer force.
Of course. And it goes a long way in addressing, circle back to always the things that we have to deal with as a foundation. The underlying causes of financial hardship that end up contributing to food insecurity. It's a lot of underemployment, educational opportunities that may not have been there, financial planning, of course, and then mental health. So these are all of these points. It seems like there's elements of these bills that you've sponsored and successfully passed in a lot of cases that it's actually helping in ways that maybe people don't even understand. And, I'm just so glad that you're thinking along these lines.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That district is so lucky to have you.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I'm lucky. I feel lucky to be able to represent it. Yeah, trust me. I mean, and it's funny because, there's and I just saw there's another bill that I should highlight, which I think is important for especially our area, that, you have the Palo Alto Hospital, which is an amazing
where we do art
hospital.
Therapy every month.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so if people are going to get in-term care, that's where you go.
For sure.
We got a couple of clinics here. You have the one at 85 and 101, which I want to talk about that one. But then we also have the Gurley Clinic there down in the Monterey City as well.
Yeah.
Those are kind of outpatient care.
More of a clinic.
Yeah. And so you got a lot of people who need to go up to Palo Alto. But as you know, it's kind of hard to get to. And so we did a transportation bill that funds grants for transportation for veterans to get from certain, especially if it's over certain distances, especially going from Monterey to Palo Alto. So
that's awesome.
One more and I'll stop talking. But
this is your show.
So we have the Veterans Clinic at 101 and 85 there.
Yes.
And right now it's just the Veterans Clinic.
That's right.
So being from San Jose, you're obviously familiar with the Corporal Pat Tillman from Leland High School in Almaden Valley.
Yeah.
We have a bill, a bipartisan bill, to name that Veterans Clinic after Pat Tillman.
That's awesome.
Now, the reason I think it's appropriate to name it after him is, one, he's from here. Yeah. Two, he gave up a career in the NFL to join, felt the call of 9/11. And unfortunately, three, he died from friendly fire.
Yeah.
And so it's a reminder that we need to always basically watch out for those who are serving, but also watch out for our veterans, being that it's named a Veterans Hospital after him. And so, like I said, I look forward to hopefully getting signed into law to ensuring that Veterans Clinic is now named the Corporal Pat Tillman Veterans Clinic there in San Jose.
That's amazing. Yeah. I'm so glad to hear that. And I mean, that obviously our foundation was founded in honor of my great uncle who was killed in action. Yeah. So Gold Star families and those initiatives mean a lot to us. Yep. And I think any chance you get to carry on the memory of any fallen service member, it's a really good thing. Absolutely. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
I mean, like I said, I don't know when you sleep with all of these initiatives that you guys
I have good staff as well. I have
very good staff.
Great staff, and they understand.
I can attest to that.
The
They're very nice.
of making sure that our military is enhanced and our veterans are served. Like
absolutely.
I can't stress that enough.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, this has been a really wonderful overview of everything that you've sponsored. And, you know, I just wanted to circle real quick to what you enjoy being most about being a congressman, because I mean, you've highlighted a lot of things. But is there anything else that has just really stood out to you as a really positive moment in your decades, it sounds like, of service?
So there are some tough things. There's some challenges about this job, but there really are. I mean, they're overshadowed by the benefits of actually serving the people of the 19th Congressional District. And as I say it, making the federal government work for them. Sure. Foundationally, that's really what it's about. That's how I see my job. Like I said, it's unfortunate that there are some of my colleagues who look at it and think it's about yelling and screaming and really kind of not getting anything done. I've kind of learned this, that it's about serving, and you serve it through basically either legislation, federal funding into the district, or providing that casework when people have a personal problem with the federal government. Sure. Like I said, I just came from 3 hours of office hours where people come in and say, I got this issue with immigration. I got this issue with the veterans issue. I got this issue with the IRS. It's like, well, we're here to help you. And that's really good. But let me tell you, one of the gems of this job and one of the things that gives me hope about this country is when I get to appoint these young men and women to the military academies.
Oh,
and so you get these kids that are the best and the brightest in their high schools in the district. These are kids that could do anything they wanted.
In the world, anything.
These are kids that could go to any college they wanted to. Yet they choose to go to the military academies. Yeah. And to me, that gives me hope about the youth. It gives me hope about our military. For sure. It gives me hope about the future of our democracy. That to have young men and women who are so talented, could do anything they wanted to, yet they're choosing to not just go to the military academies, choosing to sign up for another 4-6 years after that, which is their commitment in the military, in the armed services. That to me says that we're doing it right. There's still hope, and we're still doing what's right in ensuring that our young men and women understand the obligation to give back to their country that has given them so much opportunity. Yes. And there's no better example of that than those young men and women that we get to appoint to these military academies. And let me tell you, it's really competitive.
Oh my goodness,
really
of
competitive.
course.
And
Yeah.
like I said, these are kids that hit all their marks on their scores. They're stud athletes. They're
Yeah.
studs in the classroom. And like I said, there's a lot of opportunities in front of them. Fortunately for us, and I mean that, fortunately for us, they choose to serve.
For sure.
And so, like I said, those are some of the things that people don't hear about our work,
Yeah.
that we get to do that. And so, like I said, that's one of the things that makes me the proudest. And like I said, selfishly, it just gives me so much hope.
Well, it's a calling, and I mean, just like it was for you.
Yeah,
I know
that's right.
you grew up with a legacy of service. Let's put it that way, and I'm sure that maybe some of that played a part, but I think it's also what's in your heart.
Yeah.
And you can tell just talking to you for 5 minutes that it really matters to you. That it's about the people. It's about what you do, and
Well, this is what's amazing, because when I was in high school, I was nowhere near like those kids that I just
Really?
talked about.
Okay.
Oh my God. I had no idea what I wanted to do. But like I said, I think there was a through line in me that really came not necessarily from my mom and dad, but came from my grandfather. He was an Italian immigrant that came here. And, when he died, passed when I was in 8th grade. But before that, they lived in a house next door to us, and we'd always go to their house for dinner on Sunday nights and have the nice Italian meal. But my dad would always ask him the same question. And it was that, why did you take the risk to come to America? Why did you leave the known to come to the unknown? And his response was always the same, in that basically he wanted to give his children a better life, which I believe is the American dream. I think we all want that. We want the opportunity, and it's our job to make sure people have the opportunity for that. But what my parents did tell us is that myself and my two older brothers is because we're allowed to live the reality of that dream, we should always give back to the country and community that gave us those opportunities.
That is wonderful.
And so even though I didn't really know what I wanted to do, I kind of had that foundation of service within me. And so it's why I think, even though going into law school, I didn't know I wanted to be an attorney, didn't know I wanted to be a prosecutor, why I became a prosecutor. It got to a point where I wanted to basically join the military before it came too late. I regretted not joining the military, and why I signed up to the reserves, why I volunteered to go forward, why I augmented with JSOC in Afghanistan from 07 to 08, and why basically then I had the confidence enough to run for this position as a U.S. Congress member, which is the best job out of the many good jobs I've had. It's the best job I've had because you're really able to not only just help fulfill that obligation that I talked about, but actually help people from our community, including the military members that are serving now and the veterans and their family members who continue to be a part of our community, which is important.
That's incredible. I mean, obviously, it's in your heart to do it. And I mean, you have done it so well. And I'm so grateful to you for everything that you do. And, you continue to do the good work, the hard work.
There's more to do.
There's
we
a
got
lot more to do.
Let me tell you, especially in this environment that we're in right now.
The district is in good hands. Well, I will say
it's
that.
Because of the people. I got good constituents. I got good staff that serves our constituents.
And you listen.
And like
to
I said,
people.
well, you have to. I mean, that's, we got 2 ears and 1 mouth
That's
for
right.
a reason. And that's as my staff knows and as we know, listening is a big part of the job, because people feel that it's right now, especially with the divisions that are there in our country, people are losing a little bit of faith in our institutions, and that affects our military as well. And I think there's look, the highest rated institution in our government is the U.S. military. People have the most trust. 90%. Those numbers come back at 90%.
Of course.
And we have to maintain that. And the way you maintain that is making sure that you keep politics out of our military. Don't use them as pawns. Don't put them in positions that can be politically divisive. Make sure that they continue to do their job in a nonpartisan way to ensure our national security. We have to ensure that, because we want to make sure that our young men and women who join that do it for the right reasons, and they live up to those right reasons of giving back to the United States of America, not the divided states of America. And it's our obligation to continue to encourage that, to enhance that by supporting our military, making sure that we have organizations like the Cost of Courage that understand that, there is that extra help that's needed at the local level. And so we're trying to work it from the top down. You're supporting up from the bottom up, and we meet in the middle. And that's, to me, how we make not just a stronger military, it's how we have a stronger democracy.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. And I mean, you are just incredible. And I appreciate everything you do. And I thank you for being here.
You bet.
And
thank you.
You know what? Keep doing what you're doing, please.
Thanks for the support. Thanks for highlighting not only our work, but the work of other men and women in our community that are supporting our military members as well.
Of course. Veterans. Thank you. And thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time. Thank you for watching the Cost of Courage podcast. For more on the foundation, please visit our website, thecostofcouragefoundation.org. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.